So in this lesson, we're just going to plow through a bunch of different widgets. Now we're going to start off with the widgets within the scaffold. So the scaffold has some arguments that you could pass into it. Now the way I find out what arguments a widget has or which ones I kind of need to use, I like to hover over them. For example, in this one, the scaffold, I could look into all the arguments that it has, try to understand it. If I don't understand it from this documentation, you can always go to the flutter.dev website and you can look into it deeper there. So within the scaffold, you can define an app bar. Now this app bar widget is this blue bar up at the top. If you remove the app bar widget, we'll notice it goes away. Now we'll bring that back. Now in the app bar, you again have a bunch of different customizations you could have. Like you can change the background color, you can center the title, because on Android it's normally not centered, and a bunch of other behaviors that you could find if you need to use them within the app bar. But I like how this looks. Another field within the scaffold is a floating action button. So the thing that's special about the floating action button is that it's above this back screen over here. It's named the floating action button because it's floating above everything else. You can have all your content, maybe like a Twitter application or something. You have all the posts over here. This will always be floated above so that you can click it whenever you need to. In this case, it just increments our counter. Now we get into this middle section. So this is the main portion of the app. This is where everything is going on. So our center widget centers all our content in the middle. If we removed it and that is still centered, because the column expands from the very top to the very bottom. And we can actually see that if I wrap it into a color. So there you go. This is what your column widget looks like. The column goes all the way from the top to here. And this main axis alignment, so the main axis for the column is going up and down. You want that to be centered. And let's just keep the container and bring back our center widget. If we save this, you'll see now it's centered vertically and horizontally. Let's remove this little color. So then within our column widget, a column is like it sounds. There's both rows and column widgets within Flutter. A column means you can put stuff vertically on top of each other. Just like this. I copy pasted this text and you see it's all on top of one another like a hamburger. And these text widgets are also pretty straightforward. It's just a piece of text. And you can style it to make it look bigger like this 3 is. Now, I just want to mess around and show you a couple other widgets. So let's say we want a list of text. We could go to the Flutter index and then search for list. It's animated list. We're not trying to animate anything. There's a column, which is a layout of list of children, which is good. There is also a list. More specifically, a list view, a scrollable linear list of widgets. So let's try using a list view, see what that looks like. Now, this is the list I defined, and let's change this to Andre. But as I saved it and I try to load it in, we got a problem. The problem says our viewport does not have a hat size. Let's see if we can find the original problem. So vertical viewport was given an unbounded height. Now feel free to pause and read this description. It will explain the error even better for you. But what it's saying is that we have a column. And remember, column was all the way from the top to the bottom. And then we have a list view, which is within that column. And you're not really telling the list view how tall it can be. And then the list view is within that column. Now, list view wants to do the same thing. It wants to go from the top to the bottom. But since it's within a column and there's other stuff in there, it doesn't know how to do it. The solution to that is to give it a size. We could just tell it. Let's say we want it to be a height of 200. So there you go. Now you see everything is in a list view. And notice we wrap this thing within a sized box. So what is a sized box? If you read the description, it creates a fixed sized box. It allows you to basically give a height and a width of what you need. And it's actually a pretty commonly used widget because let's say you want some space in between this text and the counter. You can add a size box here Let's just do 100 to exaggerate it. A height of 100, you'll see there'll be a big space in between these two widgets. So you can use the size box widget to do things like that. But the most common widget is called a container widget. Now, a container widget is like a size box, but it comes with a lot of other properties. One of those is color. We've done this before, but I didn't explain it. By using a container, you could set this property of colors.red. Now let's actually remove this and just put it at the top because it doesn't really matter. It doesn't look good with white above it. Now, the container is also one of the most commonly used widgets. You usually use a container when you can't find a widget that does what you want, because a container can be fully customized. And let me change this color from a red to a light blue so we could easily see the text. So let's highlight over the container widget and see what other properties we could give it. We give it things like padding and then things like margin as well. So let's give it some margin. To give margin, you do edge inset.all and then give a value of how much pixels of margin you want to give it. If we save it, you'll see now there's a little bit of margin around our whole container widget. You could also add some decoration to this. So here you see you could give this little container a border. And we can make it as wide as we want, even make it like 10 wide. Now this doesn't look good because our text and everything is getting cut off by the border. And this is easy again to fix within a container using some padding. If we do 20 padding all around, you'll see it gets brought up into the middle. Now the container widget, like I said, will probably be working a lot within Flutter as it's used to do little designs like this, putting borders, adding padding, and adding some margin to other widgets. So we covered the list view, but there's also a page view widget. Page view is the same exact thing, except for everything being in a list. Actually, let's go back to the list view. I didn't show you that this list is scrollable. So let's say we had a bunch of things in here. You'll be able to scroll through these like a normal list. So now let's turn this into a page view. Page view is a very similar concept to list, except it's pages. So you can scroll through the pages and through all the different entries within the page. These are just some of the widgets you would use within Flutter. The next lesson, we're going to do a little test. I'm going to have a UI that I would like you to try to build out yourself, and we're going to go through it, and I'm going to show you how I would build it out.